You sent me a really random. You sent me two random texts that night. First text said, "Do you like Seinfeld?" And I responded with, "No, never found it funny." Like, da, da, da. Follow up text: I think Brian Daboll should be fired. Why?
So for the Seinfeld text, I watched Seinfeld for the first time, and I thought the humor reminded me a lot of you. I think your way of presenting jokes is similar to Jerry Seinfeld's. But
I don't know if
to
I
the
should be
main
offended.
question, I liked it. I thought it was good.
Okay.
But to the main topic of discussion, I mean Brian Daboll, at the very least, he's not a great leader. I mean, you look at the Lions and Jets, two teams that are having turnaround seasons right now. Those coaches, they've been through some bad games, some bad stretches, but through that, they were leaders. They led their team. Dayball here is, blaming the quarterback. We saw the end of the first half. I don't know if you watched that play, but where he wasn't able to spike the ball in time, and the Giants ended up not being able to score. Who do I blame for that? I blame Dayball. Because if you're giving the quarterback a play with an option and the quarterback takes the option, you're the one who gave him that play. Dayball gave him the play. You can't blame your quarterback. You can't blame anyone but yourself. When you're the coach, you take responsibility. And, the Giants were playing well that night. So when I look at Dayball blaming his quarterback, his backup quarterback, who came into this game not having a start the season, I'm putting the blame on Dayball. And you look at Dayball, not just this game, but even in past games, he's blaming everyone but himself. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, he's just not a great leader. He shouted at his OC that game too. And when you're the head coach, you have to be the last stop. You're the one who makes those decisions. So if you did not want Taylor to take the option and run the ball, guess what? You don't give him that option. You tell him it's a pass play. So I just blame Dayball for that. And I think for the Giants, one, they've not been able to make it work with Dayball. Period. They made the playoffs. So what? It was not a pretty trip to the playoffs. They did not do anything there. I think it's time to move on from Dayball. And Dayball has the tools on this team. The only thing he really doesn't have is an O line, but he has a lot of tools both on defense and offense. And you've seen just a terrible season from him. And they had that one win against the Cardinals, so not really counting that for much. I just don't think the Giants are a team that can keep on running with Dayball. I think you got to move on from him.
So yeah, last year the Giants went 9-7-1, made the playoffs. Um, we have seen. So yeah, I kind of agree with you on that whole. Yes, Tyrod Taylor audibled into the run. Shouldn't have been an option there to audible into the run. You can say that. That whole play though, I don't think there was a winning. I don't think that there was a winning answer for Tyrod Taylor, no matter what he did, unless he got the touchdown. Because I saw fans reacting. They're like, "Why the heck would you run it on that right there when you could pass?" And it took me back to the Super Bowl where Russell Wilson threw instead of giving Marshawn Lynch the ball, which you could say, okay, Marshawn Lynch is better than Saquon. But Russell Wilson threw it in a very similar situation and it got intercepted. So who's to say that wouldn't have happened here? And then people would be like, well, you should have ran the ball. And I just don't think that there was a winning situation there for Tyrod Taylor if he doesn't get the touchdown. He needed to get the touchdown. Otherwise, there was going to be blame. Brian
Well,
Daboll, though, I don't know how you fire him unless he just, which he does get angry. I mean, we saw him throw the tablet at Daniel Jones, but he was the coach of the year last year. So do you go from coach of the year to being fired just over the course of one season?
okay. Couple things on that first. I would say, from the genius football mind of Stanley Colosso, I would say you go for the pass. Tyrod Taylor is a guy who's been around. He's
Mm-hmm.
played under a lot of coaches, and you tell him, hey, if you don't get a wide open receiver, throw it out of bounds, and then you go for the field goal. That's what I think was the right decision there.
Okay.
But back to the second point, I think you do. Why? Because it's the best thing for the team. Now, I don't think the Giants had it easy. They also played a lot of really tough teams entering this season, and especially coming off, a playoff run. You need a little bit of optimism, to start off that season, and they did not have. They had a lot of really tough teams. But when you look at the Giants, you look at where they are right in the standings. I think you need to move on from Daniel Jones. I think that division, there's too many teams that have, playoff hopes to really be able to make a run with Daniel Jones at this point in time. So I think you need a new coach, you need a new philosophy, and it's time to move on. In regards to firing a coach of the year, it's happened before. Coaches of the year have sucked, and I think Daboll is sucking. And you look at this game, there's a lot of decisions he could have made better, and that decision making, that leading, is where I have issues with him. With the Jets, one thing I'll say is I've been through so many years of seeing fights and arguments and all types of bad things in that locker room, and it all came from having Adam Gase, right? And guys before Adam Gase is not good coaches, not keeping that locker room in check. With Robert Saleh, even when he wasn't making the best decisions on the field, well, guess what? He made good decisions off the field that at least kept people in town. Say what you want about him, he got Aaron Rodgers to come to the Jets, right? He got Aaron Rodgers to take a pay reduction on the Jets. Those are not easy things to do. Remember Aaron Rodgers taking a pay cut when he was on the Packers? I don't. So here's the thing. He was able to lead this team, to bring free agents into this team, and to make the trade with Rodgers, and that is a leader. With Daboll, I just don't see that. And I think when you have that locker room with the Giants where it's just there's got to be no hope there, you got to move on at some point. I think for the Giants, maybe this loss, even though it was an ugly loss, they were able to have some sparks on defense. Maybe this can push them to work a little bit harder. But we're talking about Josh Allen going, the quarterback you're going up against, the king of the choke. I mean, I just don't know if you could really see Daboll as a leader in this locker room and as a guy who's going to be able to help you get better in future years. I think the Giants are out of contention this year. And I think it's especially so because of the other three teams that they're going up against in their division. The Commanders, have had some bad games. Look at the Chicago game, but the Commanders are still, I think they're 3-3 right now, right? They still have playoff hopes, right? The Eagles are obviously a playoff contender, and the Cowboys just as much, a team that's going to try to get a wild card spot or maybe even win the division. That's still a possibility for them. The Giants are definitely out of it. I think you have to move on.
So, something Bengals fans have become very reactionary the last few years because we've gotten that taste of greatness. And so whenever something goes bad, everyone wants everyone fired, it seems like, on the internet. Zach Taylor is one of those people who people automatically want fired. And something I always ask is, who do you replace him with? And they're like, well, anyone. I mean, in the moment, they're like, anyone's better than Zach Taylor right now. And same thing with Daniel Jones. Who do you replace him with? That's what the Cowboys have said with Dak. Who are we going to bring in that's better than Dak? Which Daniel Jones, I do think, is more replaceable than Dak. But do you want to go that reactionary route? Unless the way I think you replace Daniel Jones is you somehow get someone to trade for him, because that contract is huge. Sign Saquon and then draft a quarterback. I don't know how you necessarily replace Brian Daboll, though.
So, I mean, with the coaching situation, I'd say this with Zach Taylor. I think Zach Taylor, the reason people were reactionary to him were because of his decisions on the field and because they felt like he wasn't, winning that many games. In the beginning of every season with Zach Taylor, there's a lot of questions. Zach Taylor, I think, I don't know what the reason is. Maybe you probably know this better than I do, but he seems to struggle getting over that first hump of the season. Call it whatever. Brian Daboll, for me, he gets angry. He doesn't seem to have the locker room control, and he doesn't make good on-field decisions. It's too many issues for me that I think you just have to get rid of him. In regards to who you're going to replace him, I mean, there's so many offensive and defensive coordinators all over the NFL you could look at. I would actually, if I was them, I would look at, I'm blanking on his name, but the OC for the Eagles. I mean, he's had some success. And you look at the Eagles, one thing you can't say they're bad at is having a good O-line. Maybe you bring in someone from the Eagles. That's an organization that's had success. Whether it's an offensive or defensive coordinator, look at someone who has head coach potential, who succeeded on that team, because that's a team that's done very, very well. And that's how coordinators are usually picked. I don't like the college route for picking NFL coaches to be a head coach or even a coordinator. I think college and NFL is just two completely different games. But look at teams where you have offensive, defensive coordinators, who might be able to do something. I just think Daboll is not a good person to have in your locker room. With Daniel Jones, I don't think he's as much of a necessity to replace. My bigger concern is that I just don't think he's going to get any better. So I think you, at the very least, you get a couple guys in the draft, or through free agency who might be able to compete with him. I think you want to use at least a third round pick, if you're willing to, maybe a second or first round pick on a quarterback. And there's a lot of quarterbacks in this upcoming draft who look like they're good enough. I don't watch that much college, so I can't really judge them. But people are saying this is going to be a big quarterback draft, so maybe you get someone in the second or third round who might have some potential. I just think for the Giants right now, you're not going to make a big move. Right, you're not going to make a big run in the playoffs. I don't even know if Saquon's going to want to sign any longer contracts than what he has with the Giants as of now. So I think for the Giants, it's just time to move on.
Okay. I think you're thinking, when you said the Eagles offensive coordinator or their coordinators, I think you're thinking of Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon. Shane Steichen is currently the offensive coordinator or the head coach for the Colts. Jonathan Gannon is the defensive coordinator for the is the head coach for the Cardinals. Both the coordinators in Philadelphia are first year.
Yeah, I am thinking of their current offensive coordinator.
Okay.
I'm forgetting his name. I see him on TV all the time, but I am thinking of that guy. Because
you want them to go after Brian Johnson?
If that's his name, yes.
Okay. I think another one who, let me make sure I get his name right. I believe it's Ben Johnson for the Lions. I think he'll end up getting a head coaching position as well. He's the offensive coordinator for the Lions. So if they do decide to move on from their reigning coach of the year, which I would personally be surprised, but I do understand the argument, Ben Johnson might be a guy. So it's definitely a hot take, Stan. Thanks for watching that video, guys. If you want to check out a most recent full episode of No Buts About It, that's going to be right over here. Yep, right there. Check that out. And if you just want to see more short clips, we're going to have one right over here for you to watch. Check out No Buts About It on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you listen to podcasts, so you can listen to us on the go. Once again, have a great day and go do something nice for someone.